And this is going on, it's a group of 3 parties, and that are pretty much tied together. We did the first one last time, where Guru Sahib was talking about various multitudes that are engaged in various activities that are spiritual, that are dharmic, where they are seeking to connect with the light, with Vaheguru, in whatever way they are inspired. And in the end, Guru Sahib says that, yes, all of this is happening. He neither extols them nor praises them, but in the end says, Jo tud pave sai palikar, tu sada salamat nirankar. Really, what is worthwhile doing is whatever pleases you, whatever enchants you, whatever you like, and that's what really matters. But the crux of that party was that there are innumerable people that are walking the path of dharma in whatever way they are inspired. Now this is the exact antithesis of that, which is there are multitudes that are on the path that is the exact opposite. And Guruji calls them Murak. In Gurbani there are polarities. There is Gurmukh, those that face the light, and Manmukh, those that are governed by their minds. So Murak clearly are those that are governed by the mind, and to whom the light is not, or on whom the light is not reflected, and in whose light is not reflected. So, Asank Murak Andhakor. Just like there are a lot of dharmis, and then there are various ways they seek the dharam. Similarly, there are Muraks. That's the main category. They are the Muraks, and then they are indulging in different activities that reflect their ignorance, or that reflect their lack of knowledge, or lack of consciousness, or lack of awareness. So I think it's very important to reflect a little bit on this word Murak. What does it mean? Just like it was very important to understand what it means to be dharmic, and then you basically surrender to the will of God and say, whatever pleases you, let me do. Or Babaji says,
Manmukh, another word for it.
Exactly. But in Gurbani, there is a question that Guruji asks, that what are the lakhan? What are the characteristics of the Murak? How do I define a Murak? And then he answers that those that are imbued with love, lobh and ahankar, जिन्हां दी करनी दे विच लोभ है और जिन्हां दे मन दे विच अहंकार है, those are the Murak. Murak के क्या लक्षण हैं? He asks, and then he answers. What he says? What do they do? And the answer is those who are arrogant and those who are greedy are Murak. And then in another place, Guruji says, what do they gather in their life? What are they engaged in? And he says, Kacha tan sanche Murak. They are engaged in gathering the false wealth. They are engaged in gathering those things that are transitory, that don't last. Instead of gathering Vaheguru's Naam, instead of gathering that positive energy, instead of elevating their consciousness, they are gathering the Kacharkan. They are gathering stuff. They are gathering wealth that doesn't last. Now, in Sikhi,
another key point of Manisha is that Homa is the basis of all of this.
Homa, arrogance and Homa, they are closely tied.
Homa is a little more focused on the I-ness separation and the sense of identity, and God is more tied.
They are tied together, right? And
sometimes they translate them for ego.
Yeah.
But they're used slightly differently in Gurbani.
Ego is, yes, the ego is the sense of separation and sense of a self that is separate from the higher self. This is all about
it. Ego, it often includes pride also. But Homa is kind of focused more on the identity part,
the I part of it. And ahankar comes from that. An egotistic person or egoistic person is full of pride, full of arrogance, and has no humility. has no humility. There is no namrata, which is the cornerstone of a person who is spiritual. You know, they are humble. So I was so kacha tan sanchin murakawa, right? The dhan that is transitory, that doesn't last. Now, what is important here to understand is that there is nothing against being wealthy in Sikhi. There is nothing against enjoying what wealth brings, what money brings. We're not bad if we are wealthy. We're not sinful. We're not doing anything wrong if we are striving for money. What happens is, what do we do when we are wealthy? What is the impact that wealth is having on us? If it is making us charitable and giving us the impetus to share and to live in gratitude, that, oh my, wow, Guruji, thank you so much. And Tati Rahmatat, this is your kripa, this is your grace. And everything that we do, we attribute to grace, then there is nothing wrong with that. Because then you are enjoying that wealth as much as in grace, in Naam. But when that wealth becomes obsessive and you start trying to gather it in wrong means, with wrong means, or that wealth makes you proud and arrogant, and it makes you feel superior, it brings ego in you, it brings pride in you. That impact of wealth is what the Guruji is calling murakta, kachatan sanchin murakava. Oh, and then
I think the word you used was striving for money, that there is nothing wrong in striving for money.
Yeah.
But my concern is about the word striving, because when you strive for something, you really struggle, you really work hard, you strive to get that. So if you really work what you like, and then money is just a byproduct.
Money flows.
Yeah, but striving word is...
Okay, so I use striving in the sense of uddham. When you are, see, kirat karna, hard work karna, you know, that is part of our...
Definitely a concept, but striving
No,
for
I
money...
agree with you in terms of what you are saying. I agree with you. But where I was using striving is when you're, you know, all of us are seeking success, and it's defined in various ways. We are working hard. We want to get somewhere in life. Now that is not wrong. That is not wrong. But to do it in a way that the best way to live is in Sahaj, obviously, right? That is the Guru's way. That is the Gurmukh's way. And to do what you are doing and dedicate it to whatever you are doing, and then everything flows. I totally agree with you.
Strive in a way is, I see what you're saying, but strive in a way, objectives karte hain na, aaj main inni daud lagani hai, I'm going to achieve that, that's striving to do it. Similarly, you can have an objective to get wealth or accomplish something, that kar lena, jewelry leni, kuch bhi lena, as long as that doesn't become your obsession, and you don't get too attached to it. Guru Sahib says it's okay. Sandhya, kadandiya, sara kuch karte karte.
So let's not get struck with the word. I agree with what you're saying in terms of the thought behind it, which is that don't struggle, don't get so tense about it. Don't worry too much about it. If that's what you mean, I totally agree with you.
I think attachment is a key part of it.
Attachment.
You recognize that it's all transient anyway, but whatever I'm doing, I want to be successful at it. And I want to do my duty to my family and things like that. But I know this is not the real thing. The real thing is what I do and now.
And also what impact is it having on you? Now, you know, there is raza, which is hukam, which is will. There is rahmat, right? Which is grace. And I think it was Professor Saab that said that Sikhi de ato kinare mein, the raza and rahmat. And when you live within them, then the river of Sikhi flows beautifully. So if the wealth goes away and you're not bent out of shape and you're not miserable and you don't lie awake at night saying, oh my God, what happened? You know, checking your stock every morning and just kind of getting completely worried about it.
But I'm still kind of analyzing this part. So there are two ways. Let me try to vocalize my thoughts. There are two ways. One is when you are striving for money, as we said, that we want to get somewhere in life. That these are the words you gave. Like we want to get somewhere in life, or we want to be successful, we are striving for money. When you have all these goals, then the attachment and the obsession will naturally come along with it. But on the other hand, if you are just enjoying your work, doing what you love,
and not too
just
I agree. Yeah.
and do the things in a Gursikhi way of life, like you don't bother money comes or not. You are not striving for money. You are striving for good. You are striving for social good. Money comes or not is not a goal. I think that is the second part. Money will just fall into. We are not striving for money.
Actually, three things. One is we came here from the meaning of the word murak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we said, murak the definition है but let's get back to the meaning of murak. Murak ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਸ time थोड़ा हो रहे हैं. क्यों हो रहे हैं कि murak the root है मूड, जड़ बुद्धि कि भाई मैं हमने किया है हम ऐसे ही करेंगे. I will not change. And ਇਹਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੋਲ मीनिंग ਸੁਣਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵਰਡ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਵਧੀਆ ਤੇ ਮੂਰਖ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਲਿਟਰਲੀ ਸਿੰਪਲੀ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟਡ ਮੂੰਹ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣਾ. मैं कहता तो मैं ये पक्का रहूँगा. So that is मूरख, right? जड़ बुद्धि, गधा बुद्धि, हम किया, हम करेंगे, हम मूरख का वार करने वाला विसर्या है जित दाता देवन हर में पंक्ति याद. तो बेसिकली मैं कीता मैं करांगा मैं करता रहूँगा. That is
मुंह रखना. That is the thing. अपने मुंह ਨੂੰ stubborn होके रखना.
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੂਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਈ ਸਾਡੀ about money. And ਤੀਜੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਈ ਕਿ ਬਈ striving for money, right? So ਜਿਹੜਾ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਵਾਅਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਨੇ ਨਾ ਕਿ should I strive for that or should I not strive for that, ਇਹ ਫਿਰ ਥੱਲੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ when we have a different aim in life, right? And I think what you are alluding to is that only कि ਬਈ ਮੇਰਾ ਜਦ aim ਹੀ ਬਦਲ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਰੋਜ਼ਗਾਰ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ will not matter. It matters, and the problem is all of us, at least I am never honest. I will want to ascribe to that कि हाँ aim मैं वो रखना है, but I will still always keep remaining stuck in this.
But that's not just you. See, I was describing what happens in general life, that you strive for all of that, and that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. The bad thing is when you get overly attached to it and obsessive about it. Now, of course, the ideal is just do whatever, and he's absolutely right in saying that yes, the striving and all of that, as you were saying, becomes secondary. But the thing is, it's a reality. That is how we operate, and that's all right as long as anything doesn't become obsessive and you keep the goal in front of you, which is that Nanak lekhe ek kar aur chakna cha. The rest is all going to just be useless in the end. And I have to truly strive for that naam within me, that constantly being in tune. Okay. So going back to we just kind of lost this here. Asank Murak Andhakor. Now, I did want to elaborate a little bit on what Gagan said about Murak, Jara Murak Dene. I don't know if everyone got that. What that means is that I have said this and this is the law. And you utter things from the mouth without reflecting. That's the corollary of it. Murak, now just vomit it out. Just be open and blunt and just say it out. However, the Guru's hukam on that is Sarat bolan ke mahi vichaar. Reflect, think. Just don't utter it. So, o muh rakhna, bagair soche samjhe bolna. That is the root of the word murak. And so asank murak, there are countless ones that are doing that. There are countless ones that are saying things without thinking, that are engaged in gathering wealth and having feeling the negative impact of it. And how is life for them? Andhakor. It is the darkest darkness. It is the well of darkness, that night where the moon is not shining, where there is nothing, there is absolutely no light. Living in that consciousness is living in utter darkness. Asank Murak Andhakor. Asank chor haram khor. Now, I want to keep this first line in mind and then know that these are the subcategories of people that live in that negative consciousness, adapt or are constantly in tune with that negative energy, that murakta, that murakna, that kacha karna, that lobe, those vichaar, that arrogance, that pride. Asank chor haram khor. Now what happens? What happens when you are living in that consciousness? Then it's not enough that things are flowing to you. Then you want to steal. Why do you want to steal? Because it's not enough that grace will come to you in time. It's not enough that you are engaged in something you love doing and that money will flow. Then you want to steal so that you become wealthy overnight. Then you adapt. Then you look for shortcuts. Asank chor. Then you steal from others. Jo tada hak nahi hai. O lande ne. O labde ne. Onu grab karte ne. Us cheez no jo tadi nahi hai. Asank chor haram khor. What is haram khor? Haram khor is people who, literally it means bastards, right? People who really are not legitimate. Let's put it this way: not legitimate. Who live in illegitimate or live with illegitimate means. Asank chor haram khor. And he describes various facets of this life, Guruji over here. Asank amar kar jaye jo. And then what happens to them? Their law, their word, they want it to become law. They want that whatever I say, that should be the rule. I want to rule the country. I want to dictate to the whole universe. And if that's not happening, let me rule this country. If that's not happening, at least let me have a voice in my neighborhood. Well, you know what? If nobody's listening to me, I'm going to bully my family. And then I'm going to say, and my wife had better be listening to me. My word is law. Asank chor haram khor, asank amar kar jaye jo. Jabardasti naal apna hukam chalate. Not with kindness, not with compassion, not with persuasion, not with good intentions, and not with bringing people into their way of thinking through dialogue, right? Kuch kahiye, kuch suniye, kuch kahiye. Not through all of that, but through jor, through force, through saying that, look, you better listen to me or else. And that's not acceptable. Because what is acceptable, or what is the way of life that Guru wants is namrata. Humility that, I could be wrong. Humne change bura nahi koi. I'm not perfect. But those that want to impose their will get into arguments, will condemn other point of views, will not accept other perspectives. Asank galvad hatya kamai. And then the obsessiveness becomes so extreme to gather this kacha than, to become rich and gain this wealth overnight and quickly is what? They're ready to kill. They're ready to murder. And we hear these things all the time. We hear of families that, where brothers have killed each other. I mean, I'm talking about very recent items in the newspaper. What is happening all over the world. People are killing each other. People are taking each other's wealth by force. Asank galvad hatya kamai. And then they carry the burden of killing, of murdering, of whether you are grabbing other nations' space or others' rights to live in freedom and worship in freedom. You're killing people in the name of religion. You're killing people to gather wealth. You're killing people to establish your supremacy. You're attacking gurdwaras because you don't like whatever the building looks like and you don't even know who they are. I mean, these are people that are slaughtering and killing others because they want their supremacy. They want their will. They want their word to be supreme. They want to gather what belongs to other people. Chori sirf paise di nahi hai. Chori is of ideas. Chori is not giving recognition to something that truly belongs or that should be credited to somebody else. How many times have you heard? I just heard from a friend yesterday that it was my project. I worked hard on it and my boss took the credit. How often does that happen? That is chori. How often do you fudge on taxes? That is chori. So many different ways in which we steal, in which we take that which is not our haq, in which we want our world and our intention, whatever it is, to rule, to be supreme. And you know, the point of these discussions is to hold a mirror to ourselves and say, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I am doing unconsciously, without awareness, where any of these things could be reflected upon me, because the burden of carrying them is so heavy that it'll slouch us, that it'll cripple us, that it'll wipe out, you know, everything good. What is it? What kind of chori are we doing? What kind of hatya are we doing? What are we killing? What are we destroying? It's very easy to read this Bani and say, and quickly come up with examples of who is doing it. You know, I remember one time I was very disturbed about something, and I took a walk and it said, "Ulti re man ulti re, sakat syon kar ulti re." And immediately I said, yes, I'm not supposed to have anything to do with this person, or sakat hai. And then it dawned upon me that my thoughts, when I am condemning someone, when I am judging, when I am really getting into slander and getting into these exaggerated responses which are not true, that those moments I'm living like a sakat. It's not that, you know, you are sadhu now and you are, you know, the sakats is there. It's your consciousness that is evolving. So Bani is about, it's a mirror to your own self, to your own progress, to your own evolution. That's how I perceive it and read it.
It's a very important part. These two things not only talk about the fact that in the world around us there are good people and bad people, there are people who are going towards God and people who are going to it's also within ourselves there are these balance.
Exactly.
We have the Shiva and Shakti within ourselves.
Exactly. We have the good and bad within us. We have the, you know, we have the chore within us, and how to quieten that impulse, how to take it towards now. Yes, Vichaar.
I totally agree with that, because when I was studying this body at home this morning, and this thing came, Asank Murak Ankor, the second moment, the point that came to my mind was Gurbani also says Nako Murak Nako Siana. Right? Then how can I decide that the person who's sitting in front of me is Murak and I am Siana? The second moment I started to look for the word Murak, and it came Man Murak Kahe Bil Laige. And then it was like, no, it's not the other person who Sab is talking about. It is my man that he's talking about, and the thoughts in my man that are murak, that are haram khor, when I don't realize ki main kita na jata haram khor. When those thoughts
when
come,
I'm not recognizing,
when I'm not recognizing, it's not about what the third person is doing, or what my husband is doing, or what my family is doing, or what my brother is doing. It is what you are doing at every moment of your life. And only when you realize that, then only will you be able to crouch under that burden. If you don't realize that, you might be committing 1,000 murders and your conscience will be all clear. It is only when you read Gurbani, when you live according to that, you realize that this is something I am doing wrong. Unless you realize
that. And so, okay, so beautiful points. Pule Marat ne bataya, aisa gurvat paki paya. Now, Pula kaun hai? Jisnu awareness hai. Right? What directions puchega? And the one who thinks that, oh, I know it all. We'll never look for the guru. We'll never look for the light. So at one level, it is jere pulle hoye ne, jara recognize karda hai ki main pulle hoya. Thank you for those beautiful comments. So really, those are moments of our own consciousness where we are deluded, where we want to take somebody else's due, where we want to grab recognition, you know. Recognition comes of its own. Jis neech ko koi na jane naam japo chau kun pachana, right? We don't have to grab it. We don't have to take it away from somebody else. It comes, whether you like it or not. You know, Bhai Singh said, "Chupe rehndi cha, chupe dur jandi, puri hondi na, main tarle la raya." You know, he wanted to be not known, and the whole world knows him even today. You know, not just our world, even the Western world. Through his translations, there was this mystic saint I heard from a friend, Bhai Singh. Do you know him? Have you heard about him? Yes, I've heard about him. So all of the gifts, all of the blessings will flow with the now when you live in that consciousness. And so there is no need. But you know what? We are all human and we are all frail. And we all have those moments. The important thing is to stop ourselves, to live mindfully in every action, in every thought, because thought is where it all generates and then turns into action. असंख्य गलवट हत्या कमाए, असंख्य पापी पाप कर जाए. So many times. You know, what is pap? Let's reflect a little bit on this. What is pap? What is pap kamana? There are so many ways that one can do things that are wrong. But for me, personally, and I would love to hear what other people have to say about it, that which hurts someone, kisi da dil dukhana, just those actions that hurt. You know, Sheikh Farid da Shabad, I don't remember the exact lines, but the crux of it is that the human heart is the most tender and the most beautiful jewel. Those who hurt it are the ones who commit a crime. So to do hurtful things, to do things that hurt others, however they are hurt, you know, that's wrong. That's Asad Papi. Anybody else wants to add to that?
I have a thought. Of course, the criterion is very difficult. If you're not living according to God's will, and that's pop, it doesn't necessarily mean involving another being.
Yes, you can do pop to yourself, just you can do good to yourself. Yes.
Any harm-driven action.
Any harm-driven action. Man achet paap te dar. You know, those things that happen without you being mindful of that. I'm not deliberately. You know, most of us, I'm not talking about hardened criminals, but most of us really don't want to hurt. And if somebody says, you know, you've been doing that, no, I didn't do that, I didn't mean that. So we don't want to. I think essentially, most people want to live, you know.
Don't you still want to do something illegal and steal money from the government and not hurting somebody specific?
You think you are not. You think you are not.
Not directly. You're not hurting somebody's heart directly, then directly you're hurting.
You are hurting everybody else. When you are taking from the government, you're taking from me. You're taking from everybody else.
I'm not specifically hurting somebody.
And that is why, Viji, people think that it's okay.
I'm saying.
Now, I know you're not saying that. I know you're not saying that. I know you. We can go at a tangent and discuss examples of this. How we steal, how many ways we steal, and we think it's okay because we don't think we are stealing from. I have a hard time stealing from Monji, but stealing from government, stealing, you know, from the masses out there. Has anyone read this book called Arthur Miller, this play where during the war, the person who's making planes takes shortcuts and doesn't make them as strong and doesn't test them as much as he should. Takes shortcuts. And who gets killed? His own son when he's flying that plane. So, you know our unconscious actions. A very, very recent example of someone who walked away from an apartment that, a loft that they couldn't pay for, right? It was underwater. It was thousands of people have done that, right? They walked away. They don't want to owe the money. But then they went a step further. They had a friend buy it when the bank put it on short sale. They had a friend buy it at a much more reduced price and then bought it back from them. Now, have they hurt anyone? They'll say no. You know, this is the economy. I'm just trying to survive. But who have they hurt? They've hurt everyone. There are thousands of people who are doing this. So I think it's what Gurbani tells us, teaches us, is to be super mindful of our actions. Really reflect, really hold a mirror to ourselves and say, what am I doing? Where am I falling in this today, at this moment? And how can I live in the consciousness of now?
I think this is again a characteristic of human command, that it becomes very smart and it tries to justify each and every action. Even if we are talking rude to a person, we justify बहुत ज़रूरी सी.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very important. अगर मैं नहीं that's why they already their life खराब हो जाती. Like I've seen that happening in my life. So I think that's a characteristic. So we give justifications to rationalize each and every wrong deed of ourselves, that this was important.
Yeah.
If we would have.
And also, I'm honest.
Yeah,
I'm honest. You know, I'm just saying this because I'm honest, and it doesn't matter if it hurts you. Yeah. So what is that Buddhist wisdom about telling the truth? Is it important? Is it necessary? Is it hurtful? You don't have to utter every truth. You know, that hurts someone. That doesn't mean that you are dishonest, but you know, you don't have to condemn people just because it's you know, it's honest. Just
it's a fine line.
It is a fine line. Even as I'm saying it, I'm realizing it's a fine line. You have to speak up when somebody else, when injustice is happening, and you stay quiet. And we all know what that is. We all know.
Even with all the examples that we took, there is a fine line of being lawful and knowing when the laws are being used against the people and protesting against them and breaking them when it's needed to. So we need to figure out what we need to do.
Here is one
Ethics
thing.
isn't a matter of do's and don'ts, it's values, it's core values.
And also selfishness and injustice. Whether the action that I'm taking is selfish to myself or is it helping other people?
Okay, absolutely right. Fine lines. There are things that are legally okay, but are morally not okay. Can we get away with that? I don't think so. We may get away with the with the land in which the laws have been created, right? We can be fine. We may not got caught in it because we found the legal loophole. But if we've done something that's morally wrong, I think we'll carry that burden.
I think if you do something that you know in your heart is wrong,
Yes.
hurt yourself, even if you don't know who else you're hurting,
Yeah.
you'll at least hurt yourself, because deep within yourself you will know.
Somewhere
even
deep
if
down.
you're justifying it, in your heart you'll be doing something wrong and it's going to hurt you in the long run. It hurts your true self.
And you know, Viji, I feel that sometimes one becomes hardened and you kill that inner voice after not listening to it over and over again. Then even that awareness is not there because you start living in that lie. You start rationalizing it so much that you start believing in it. But you know, the sanskars are there. Your soul will carry the burden. You will have to reap what you sow. You will have to. That is the universal law. And then you wonder, oh my God, what did I do to deserve this? Well, I created this.
And
you know, Bije Bik, Mange Amrit, right? We've sown those seeds of weeds, whether we've done it consciously or unconsciously. Man achet paap te dare. And so, you know what does one do? One just prays to Mataji, to Vaheguruji, that lead me not on that path. Lead me not into temptation. Many people would be chored if they had the temptation.
I'll just share one small
Yes,
example.
please do.
Just like it would be legally right and morally wrong, the weddings that we have these days, the lavish weddings, if I have the money, I can spend it. I can hold a wedding in London, give air tickets to everybody, but is it morally right for the person who doesn't have the
Absolutely
money
right.
and cannot marry his daughter? And that's why I think female feticide is happening
Exactly
today.
right. Exactly right. Great example.
Yeah.
Great. And so, whatever you're doing, do it with consciousness. Do it with consciousness. Just because, it's a great example. Doesn't even need elaboration.
Can I go back to your earlier statement that whatever you do, you eventually have to face the consequences.
Absolutely.
Well, how does that reconcile with the Guru's kirpa, in which they said a human being is different from his sins, and I will always accept any human being type of philosophy?
What?
Gurus don't necessarily disdain sinners. They separate their actions from the spirit of
Yeah.
the person.
But we have to pay for our actions. It's not God or Guru who judges
No,
us.
but what
It's-
happens if Guru decides to be compassionate to us and there's no karma consequence?
Yeah,
Well,
but
now-
there's two levels, right? There's a level of karma that we operate in, where what she's saying is right, every action is going to have a result and you're going to get.
But may not have a result if it's pardoned.
That's what I'm saying. The next level is one of through Nam Simran, through Gurban,
Oh, okay.
of one of being able to transcend karma. But the karma will all get wiped out if you're actually.
ਉਹਦੀ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ.
So this discussion happens a lot in our Gurban that we try to, because we are youngsters, 20 years old, everybody has this problem of free will and bakshish. And
We've had many discussions
and-
here. It always comes to that.
Really, but and I'm really fascinated by Rabir Singh Beer. If you ever get time, read his book called
Gurmat Rani?
Atam Dar.
Atam Darpan. Gurmat Darpan.
Atam Dar. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਏਗੀ ਦੀ audio sikmark.com पे. But he touches about this very subject. And he is a very traditional Sikh, writing his book in the early 30s, working for the British, coming from a very Vedic Indic community.
And very conservative.
Right.
Very conservative.
And so his background is that karma. वो बचपन से पढ़े he read this, कर्म करेंगे कोई मिलेगा आगे लिखा है जो भी होना है, and he lived with that for a while, and then he came to this conclusion. He said, you know what karma is, the whole karma theory, I don't know if there is anything really being taken into account, but the karma theory is very beautiful. It is like that tube that you give to a kid when he is learning to swim, right? But when the kid learns to swim, you don't need the tube anymore. Then you realize it was all bogus. This whole karma theory was bogus. Now, when I know how to swim in this, samundar of love of Guru, right? Now, when I can see what my actions are, am I doing the right thing or wrong? Now I know I don't need that. But as a kid, I need to know, some things are bad and some things are good and I should not be doing. So, there is a different way of interpreting it. The Vedic way is that, hey, there are karmas and they are being written down and they will be wiped off if you do certain kind of things, and we have added on top of it that if you do Nam Simran, they will get wiped off. And it's an easy way of saying that, but there is another way of seeing it, and that is the Gurmukh way of seeing it. And as we keep imbibing it, it makes us really, really free. At least it makes me really, really free to realize that we are really free agents. We are one with the Ikonkar. Ikonkar is here and there and everywhere, right? So we are not different. So there is no Gagan Atma number 7756 jide koi karm likhe ja rahe ne, and I am doing this and I am accumulating. What I am really doing is, once I am trying to open myself to the realization that yes, मैं तो उस ikonkar ਦਾ ਏਜੰਟ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇਖੂ ਯਾਰ ਕਿ ਬਾਕੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰ ਲਾਂ ਯਾਰ ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕੰਮ ਸੁਚੱਜੇ ਕਰ ਲਾਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਇੰਜ ਕਰ, ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਸਾਡਾ ਉਹ ਨੇਚਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਦੈਨ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਬੜਾ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਇਸ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਨੂੰ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਚੱਕਰ ਇਹ ਕਿ ਵੈਨ ਵੀ ਪਿਕ ਅਪ ਥੀਸ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਸ ਵੀ ਸਟਾਰਟ bringing up a little bit of मेरा थोड़ा सा knowledge, मेरा थोड़ा knowledge, कोई करते रहते हैं, we all get confused, but there is Guru Sahib deals with this subject in a shabad called ਸਿੰਘ ਸਰਣ ਕਤ ਜਾਈ ਹੈ ਜੇ ਜੰਬੂਕ ਰਸ ਹੈ ਤਉ ਗੁਣ ਕਹਾ ਜਗਤ ਪੂਰਾ ਜੋ ਕਰਮ ਨਾ ਨਾਸ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਉਸ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਇਸੇ ਟੌਪਿਕ ਬਾਰੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਖੇਡ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈ ਰਹੀ ਗੱਲ, ਪਰ ਜਦ ਗੱਲ ਸਮਝ ਪੈ ਗਈ ਫਿਰ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਰਨ 'ਚ ਆ ਗਿਆ, ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਕਰਮ ਸ਼ਰਨ ਦੇ ਜੰਬੂਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਗਰਜਦੇ, ਬਟ ਇਹ ਕਰਮ ਸ਼ਰਨ ਦੇ ਜੰਬੂਕ ਇਸ ਜੋ ਜੰਬੂਕ ਵਾਲੀ ਲੋਂਬੜੀ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਰਜਦੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ।
And most of us are not at that stage. You go up and down between those stages.
Yeah.
And there's a Haumya part of us, even when we are on the Guru's path. few of us are at the very frontal level. So in between, we kind of oscillate. And those things do matter because a lot of our actions are driven by Hauman, and then we have to watch out that we're doing.
And I absolutely agree. Once I found this, I was like, and many other things happened in my life, and I realized, oh, you know, एक ही कर देंगे आप पंडिता वांग, you know, गुरबानी मैंने सवेरे नहीं करना निकले, एक ही है टाइम पे क्यों करना, मतलब मैंने गुरु करना हर टाइम, फिर मैं छड़ता.
But then there's the discipline part of it.
And मैं छड़ता, and then I started, you know, just being free, and then I realized कि नहीं कोई तो गल सीगी क्यों मैं बाहर लुढ़क जाना बार-बार, मेरी बानी छुट जाती है, मैनू याद नहीं रहती, फिर मैं कहने यार कोई तो गल सीगी जिदे करके सानू बंधिया गया सीगा इन्हां नियमां च, कोई तो गल सीगी, and then I think you're right.
So,
we keep oscillating.
The Guru tells us about Avgun and Gun a lot in Gurbani, so it doesn't tell us they don't matter. They're very important.
No, Avgun and Gun,
that is karma too.
Avgun and Gun, he talks about, but Paap and Pun, he clearly refuses.
No, but when you say the seeds you sow, the seeds are either virtues and goodness, or weeds and negative stuff.
No, if you see
right?
that way,
Right, of course that's how it is. And we're not talking about going to hell. We're not talking about burning in hell or finding the angels in heaven. No. So we're talking about reaping the goodness or reaping the negative energies that you sow. And that's real.
I have a different perspective on it, and I know I came in at the tail end. I thought so I'm sorry. But when you are at that stage, at that higher stage, everything, all your actions are
pure.
As they are pure because they are in tune with the Guru, okay? In tune with that universal spirit. Because at that stage, your karams are not karams as the normal human beings as we have them. That is the big difference.
There is two things.
Karam, अच्छे कर्म बुरे कर्म बड़ी जगह रेफरेंस है जेड़ा गुरबानी ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਲਓ ਨਾ you will find a shabad for every stage for each and every human being, and that's the perspective.
I absolutely agree, but there are two things in what you said, and संगत इस बैठे हैं, we're not personally saying anything if ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੱਟ ਲਿਆ ਮੈਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ, but point is just since you're saying that is that stage, have you been to that stage?
That's what the Guru says.
Right.
And that's what, not just the Gurus, but if you search, let's talk about spirituality in general. If you read whether it's our scriptures or spiritual paths of other religions, they all talk about this. कि जब तुसी उस level पे पहुंच जाते हो, फिर तुम्हारे कर्म ना कर्म वाकन हो जाते हैं. And at that point, that's the stage Guru Sahib is referring to in that shabad, as I interpret it, as I understand it.
But the other thing that I want to share with everybody is that there is a tremendous liberation in trying to just fall in the sharan of the Guru.
I agree.
Right? And there is a tremendous inferiority complex that the Guru Sahib took us out of trying to put it on others, that others are going to be on that superior state, or maybe someday I will be on that. It is right now I have to take the responsibility and say I am going to be the Guru's Sikh.
I agree.
I have to live it right now, and so that is the thing is the beauty of Guru's Sikhi is that there is no option.
Okay, but I only have one comment on that. मैं हले शुरू की थी ज़िंदगी, मैं हले कोई पता ही नहीं है कि सिमरन की है, दुनिया के अंदर रहना है, की करना है. Okay, मैंने अगर दसिया जावे कि कर्म कोई चीज़ ही नहीं है, मेरी मत बोलेगी, whatever the reasons, it'll say, no, it doesn't matter, I can do good, bad, मैं झगड़े कर ला, चोरी कर ला, जो मर्जी करना, कर्म तो है नहीं कोई, मैंने कुछ पे ही नहीं करना पड़ा, मैं तो गुरु दा बंदा, मैं चोरी भी कर सकता, कुट सकता, मार सकता. See, the challenge is all of us are at different stages, and the guidance in the scriptures and the Gurbani is for everybody at different levels and different stages.
Okay, can I say something here? Okay, so we have to, I want to finish it in 2 minutes because I want you to have your 1 hour.
A lot of stuff.
Guru has said very clearly that man buriyaiyan lochdawe. We seek, we are attracted to it. Just as there are seeds, that just as we are carrying the pilot light, we are also carrying Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar. And those energies drive us towards those things. And so it's a constant tension. And to live in that tension can be avoided by mindful living, by constantly reflecting, by constantly being vigilant of your thoughts and saying, no, I'm not going to go there, because the Guru's wisdom tells me that I have to pay a price that I don't want to pay. And I think, so yes, I like Rabir Singh Veer's thought about, I can swim, but there are currents that I have to be aware of. There are sharks in the ocean when I'm swimming that I have to avoid.
I don't think he was, I think we mixed topics here. The topic of gun and avgun and the topic of pap and pun. They're two slightly different topics. And
here
gun and avgun, you're absolutely...
Yeah, and so virtues, guna ka hove vasla, chod avgun chaliye. So, okay, pap pun is a completely different subject. But here it is about living in mindful consciousness and knowing that in this Shabad, when we're talking about chori, haram khori, of doing things that are negative, we need to self-reflect in everything rather than say it's out there. Okay, let me quickly wrap this up. Asang puriyar pure firai, asang milech mal pakai. Kood is jute, and puriyar gathering the gand and mal of everything. In India, there were sweepers that would carry the kura, right? And when they passed by you, a lot of people would go like this, right? That you don't want to be near them. You don't want to, because they're living in that. But when we live in dishonesty, when we live in lack of integrity, when we live in negative energies, we are carrying that kura on us. And we are cultivating that kura, and we are constantly increasing that kura, asang kura, kure firai, udechi vari vari andar asang milech mal pakhain. Again, we're talking about mal. We kind of gathering that dirt. Asang nindak sir kare par. Okay, so here is something I want to dwell upon, this word nindak. Ninda is a very interesting word. Ninda, some people think, is talking bad about someone, a slander. Ninda is exaggerating or falsifying whether it is good or bad. Ninda kisi ki karni. To diminish someone is ninda. To diminish something. To call a thorn is not ninda. But to call a flower a thorn is ninda. So we have to be very aware of both ustat ninda, dona vich nahi rehna hai. Exaggerated praise is equally wrong, because then there is an agenda behind it. When I'm constantly praising you, or someone else is like, okay, what do you want? And you say, look, I don't have any axe to grind, but I want to tell you this. So exaggerated praise or diminishing someone, that is ninda. Be very aware of that. And ninda de utte bahut kuch aega Gurbani de vich, and the thing is, just do not engage in it. Do not try to. So here is the dilemma we face. Okay, I say that this is thorny, this is a thorn, but I'm missing that the rose is right there. That this whole think about what I'm saying. Be with me for just a minute here. My perspective is stuck on the thorn, but the rose is right next to it, and I'm missing it. But I'm saying but I just called a thorn a thorn. Well, the complete picture was different. So even though, really speaking, ninda is diminishing someone, even when you think you're not diminishing someone, you're telling the truth. It is your truth, it is your limited truth, and it is your limited perspective.
What has to do with intention? Why is it?
Intention always matters.
That's what I'm asking. If you're doing it with a negative intent, if you're pointing out something bad for good reason, then it's okay. If you're doing it somebody,
yeah, we have to be discriminated.
Down, if you're doing it for negative intent.
Intention is always primary. I'm just talking about Vijay, I'm just talking about this, that when you condemn something and you are thinking that you're doing it with the purest intention, but you're putting someone down. Even if you think your intention is correct, your perspective may be very limited. Your truth may be your truth. And so I think the general rule of thumb is, you know, that line from Bambi, if you have nothing nice to say, don't. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say nothing at all. I mean, don't.
Guru tells us what's sort of criticizing is he doing this, doing it for a good reason, and he's not going to put anyone down. He's going to explain things to us.
Yeah.
So he's doing it for a good reason.
Exactly. Babaji's doing it. But I'm saying for all of us, as we're doing it, I mean, forget it. You know, mile asant mast kar rahi hai. Forget it. Just avoid it. कोई असंत मलेश में असंत इंदर कर सिर करे पर नानक नीच कहे विचार वार्या न जावा एक वार जो तुझ पावे साई बलिका तू सदा सलामत निरंकार. The word over here, Nanak नीच कहे विचार. Some people have interpreted it as Nanak has included himself in all of these people and is not just condemning them. The other interpretation is Nanak नीच कहे विचार and नीचा का विचार कर रहे हैं. But Guru Sahib was so humble that so if Guruji is passing a judgment and condemning these people, there is no hope, right? There is nothing, there is no redemption for them. But if he's saying, you know, we all have those moments, and he is humanizing himself in this, even though he's the Guru, he's the carrier of light, he's the dispeller of ignorance. But in his humility, he's saying that, you know, I'm reflecting upon it. I'm reflecting on those moments of weakness of people who act with those impulses. Okay. Nanak neech kahe vichar. This is the only party in which,
how I took it, because again Gurbani tells us to be, you know, proud of what God made us and not go in that inferiority complex and just say mantu jod sarup hai apna mood bachha. Like, you're unique, okay? You're great how God made you. So with that thought in mind, how I interpreted this line was Nanak neech kahe vichar, since Guru Nanak Padsha is giving the characteristics of a neech man. Right. So it's just that Nanak neech man bhi vichar kar raha hai.
Exactly. So that's another which is which is very appealing, because then you think about another Shabad where Guru Sahib is saying
but also lots of shabads where he actually says very negative things about himself.
Yeah.
To express
I think
humility.
he says negative things about the man and not about yourself. And that's what the entire perspective is
humility.
Yeah.
Hum avgun mein gun nahi koi, right? It's not the Guru. I mean, we were looking to the Guru, but it is the state of consciousness. It is the state of mind. And here the reflection is on those energies that are like lowly. So, Bhaya na jawa ek war, jo tud paave, sai palikar tu sada salamat nirankar. He comes back to the same, that your creation, your power, you are so wondrous, so wonderful, that I cannot even begin to fathom it.
So all of this negativity is described as all part of heart's.
It is all, yeah.
So, and to just add one little thing on Nanak Neech, if you look at how Nanak word is used in the last sentences of most stories, you will realize that most of the time the Nanak comes as Nanak ka Mukta, and that means the Nanak is just the stamp of Nanak over there, and you can understand the sentence without Nanak being there. But in this case, it is Nanak Kakkenu Onkar.
He is.
And then Neech Chachenu Onkar. अगर नीच भी नानक के नाल नहीं होता ना, नीच किसी होर चीज नाल रिलेटेड होता, ते नीच नू याद है चच्चा मुक्ता होंदा या चच्चे नू सिहारी होंदी अगले वर्ड नाल कनेक्ट करने वास्ते. चच्चा मुक्ता है, चच्चे नू ओंकड़ है. What it signifies is that neech is also a noun just like Nanak. So Nanak neech. So Nanak is stating himself to be neech.
Is standing in that line with the others.
He is stating himself to be I am neech.
And it's open to interpretation in both ways. You know,
stylistically, other saints of the period, they've done the same. Whether we Julaha, Jamar, they've also mentioned this.
He sounds very, he uses very humble language.
Yeah. This is the word Shabad I was looking for. Hum avgun pare, ek gun nahi, right? चौथे मंजिल बादशाह था हम अवगुण पढ़े Vayamu So address to Guru Ramdas, they're talking about it. It's the Gurbani.
But Guru Sahib has used very even more fierce words like sun man ande kutte khaya, right? Like ek swan, do swani na.
So no, what she was saying was that it's addressed to the mind, and then there are these direct references about people with very elevated consciousness, very pure consciousness, saying in humility hum avgun pare, hum nahi change, bura nahi kore, right? So that is self-reflection, that is mindfulness about my weaknesses, my frailties, where I need to grow. And I think that's how we interpret it. At least that's how I interpret Gurbani, that it's constantly holding a mirror to my mind, to me, to cultivate virtues and to stay in tune with the now.
Just he had a question or a comment. I saw him raise
Anji?
Just he had raised his hand earlier.
No, just that. It's simple humility.
Ultimately, this Jyotud Bhave, whatever pleases you should be my endeavor. Jyotud Bhave, Sai Palika, that's good, that's beautiful, that's what I see. Jyotud Bhave, Sai Palika, Tu Sada Salam, forever there.
I think that also relates to the main concept of Japji Sahib Ki Sachiya Hukam Razai Chalna, and I think that relates to Jyotud Bhave,
Yeah,
Hukam Razai
absolutely.
Chalna.
Whatever pleases you, your will, your command, whatever pleases you. Sai Palika, that is good. That is accepted. Tu Sada Salamat Tarakari, because you are everywhere and you're forever there. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki